Listen. If you're a regular fanfic reader, I think there's a few things in that realm that are pretty universally well-liked. You've got your standard tropes of fluff, angst, hurt comfort, smut, found family, slice of life, canon divergent AUs. Like, if you go to pretty much any fandom on AO3 and check out the additional tag section, then most of these guys will pop up. They're kind of like the primary colors of fanfiction. Like, if you mix and match or blend some of them together, then you can come up with all sorts of combinations. But outside of that palette, we also have the things in fanfiction that make us go a little batty in a good way. The tropes, cliches, tags, genres, bits and bobs in fanfic that make our hearts beat super fast and our pupils dilate. It's like that Tom Hanks gif where he rubs his hands together and then slowly clicks. These things are our personal fanfiction kryptonite, our guilty pleasures. We all have them. Some are more innocuous, some are more salacious. And for all I've talked about with fanfiction on the channel, I haven't really delved much into the things in fanfiction that make me lose it a little bit. The things that scratch and itch in my brain that I don't really realize is there until I read something and it's like, oh, well, I discovered something new about myself. I just like peering into a story happening like I'm looking into a snow globe or I'm playing with dolls in my head. The grown-up version of Barbie. So I thought it'd be fun to share some of my own fanfic guilty pleasures with you, expose myself yet again. These are the ones that I'm comfortable putting out there, and a few of them you probably either know already or were able to infer that I liked from other videos. A lot of these I've never talked about before, or my opinions on them have changed. Like, maybe I wasn't super fond of them 2 or 3 years ago, but as I got older, it was like, I can appreciate this, let it cook. If you want to go ahead and play along at home, then feel free to do so and drop your own fanfic guilty pleasures in the comments, or if we end up matching on anything, then let me know. And without further ado, it's time to start sharing. But before we jump into the juicy bits, get settled in, get cozy, and if you want to feel cute while you're up to fanficery, then look no further than the sponsor of today's video, Parade. Parade specializes in super cute and stylish underwear, bras, and bralettes that make you feel as good as you look. This might be a bit TMI, but I actually adore the world of lingerie and undergarments. There's a lot of ways you can get creative with it and tons of avenues to explore when it comes to design, wearability, versatility, vibes. So I was super jazzed when Parade reached out to me so I could get my hands on a few pieces to try for myself. One of my favorites is the Luminous Glow Triangle Bralette, which is silky smooth, lightweight, and perfect for layering under off-the-shoulder shirts like the one I'm wearing right now. Guys, this color is literally called Slick. If you're an Omega, then this one is just the ticket. In terms of underwear, I'm a big fan of the silky mesh fabric this high-rise cheeky is made from. It's breathable, it feels like practically nothing, and the best part is this design is called smut. I kid you not. I'm covering up the more salacious activities happening on these panties, but I was absolutely tickled and had to get them for myself. Besides these more fanfic adjacent options, there's plenty of other styles you can peruse through, from comfortable basics that will go with any outfit to more unique picks that you can wear when you're feeling yourself or you want to make your partner's jaw drop. So if you're down to go grab some underwear, bras, and bralettes for yourself and join the parade, then use my code COLEY40 to get 40% off your purchase site-wide, or head to yourparade.com/Coley40. Once again, that's code COLEY40 for 40% off site-wide. A big thank you to Parade for supporting the channel. Now let's get back into the video. Welcome to hell. The first guilty pleasure on the docket is miscommunication and misunderstandings. I know some people hate this stuff, and I get it. I really do. It's frustrating. It makes you want to throw your phone across the room and scream into a pillow. I just really enjoy it for the angst potential it brings and the sort of wumpy woobification that can come out of it. Like, oh, poor you. You think your feelings are unrequited because you heard the wrong thing at the wrong time. You pathetic little creature. Someone made a mistake and will have to face the consequences of their assumption later. It's really funny imagining this from the other person's perspective. Like, let's say that character A is talking to an acquaintance or friend about how they have this super annoying regular that comes up and bothers them at work, and they're like, oh my god, he's so annoying. And then character B, hears this outside of the door that they're eavesdropping from and is like, oh my god, character A hates me. I have to go away and never talk to them again. And so character A later tries to get a hold of character B and they're like, are they ghosting me now? Why are they not talking to me? And then they feel like they did something wrong, and depending on the context, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But either way, the person that had the misunderstanding of the situation or had the miscommunication is standing in a corner somewhere looking like a wet cat in the rain. And as someone who enjoys using my favorite characters as emotional piñatas, I have a good time. Which actually ties into the next thing in fanfic that I'm guiltily fond of. Ba-bum! I got a marker in my hand. Groveling, guilt, atonement, and making up for past wrongdoings, but I couldn't fit that all on the whiteboard. So what this refers to are situations where, let's say, character A hurts character B, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but either way, character B just becomes their own person. Maybe they're like living their life, or maybe they're still very much affected by what character A did. And so character A has to make up for it. They gotta atone for the sins of hurting character B. Sometimes it's humorous and comedic, sometimes it's really deep and dark and sad. There's actually a name for this trope in Danmei called groveling scum. This person on Reddit summarized it really well. Give me a hero that does something wrong, and I prefer it when the other person is in the right all along, and they just need to beg and really grovel to get back together with the other person, earn their forgiveness, and I am in heaven. It shows growth, it can convey that people change, and more often than not, it ends in smut. And how magnanimous is it for the person who was wrong to offer forgiveness? Or they can have a carrot on a string situation where it's like, okay, I will forgive you, but you gotta prove to me that you really have changed, or you wanna change, and you wanna be a good person, or help the world. Cue 200,000 words of slow burn, where the person who did the wrong is going after trial to express their love, and meanwhile, the character that was wronged is like, ooh, well, they're working awfully hard, and I can't see that they're trying. What do I do? But then maybe they end up being super stingy with their forgiveness, or they end up doing a wrong to the person who initially wronged them, and so then it's reversed. Lots of different ways you can swing it, but at the end of the day, seeing a character on their knees, groveling, saying how they're not worthy, but they will strive to be worthy, and please, just let me prove my love to you. Now, would I ever want this IRL? Absolutely not. Like, once I'm done with you, I'm done with you. I'm not gonna grovel, you're not gonna grovel, let's just move on with our lives. But in fiction, it's an entirely different story. Once again, I'm in the bushes with my binoculars, like, yes! Yes! No, it's not coming out. This one is fairly popular, I think. It's a bit cliche, but god damn it if it doesn't make me just sing internally. It's Confessions in the Rain. Whenever I think Confessions in the Rain, I think like 2000s rom-coms or that scene in Little Women. Gets me every time. It's schmaltzy, it's romantic. You find it in a lot of old school Hollywood movies as well. I mean, that's probably what influenced the 2000s rom-coms. But I mean, Breakfast at Tiffany's, the ending has it. Maybe it's the contrast of like the dreary, gloomy rain and then this burgeoning light, this budding relationship that's happening under the umbrella, shielding themselves away from that dreariness. Or the rain could be representative of all the feelings that have been bubbling up inside of these characters, just finally erupting and showering them in it. Very classic romantic imagery. Ooh, this has been one that I've been focusing more in my searches for fanfics lately. Established relationship. If you're fairly new to fanfic or just don't know what established relationship is, basically a lot of fanfics will focus on the getting together aspect of ships, right? Like, oh, they meet at a coffee shop, or they are drift compatible in a Pacific Rim AU, and so the whole story is about how they eventually get together and become a couple. Established relationship fics, on the other hand, focus on, okay, what happens after they're already a couple, or how do they go about their day-to-day routines? Kind of slice of life-y, more domestic, like how do we make this relationship work once we're already in it? Maybe it's because I'm just at this stage of my life where I've seen a lot of the getting together parts of fics or in media in general, and I just want to see the more mundane aspects of a relationship that's already there. It's easier on my brain sometimes, just a little less frustrating. And plus I can be pretty impatient when it comes to relationship developments and fanfic. There's a reason why I don't gravitate to slow burn all that often. And so if they're already in the relationship, it's like, all right, time for kissing. Which actually ties in to the next guilty pleasure thing in fanfic. Everybody! I know some of you kings and queens who regularly read multi-chapter epics with hundreds and thousands of words and are still incomplete are looking at me like, really, Coley? One-shots? And I commend your dedication to the craft. Me personally, though, I get tired, man. I have limited energy. And so when I'm in the mood for fanfic, which is pretty much 24/7, but I don't have the time or energy to spare for it, one-shots are perfect for that because they're typically concise, contained, one-and-done stories that I can just churn out one after the other. And nowadays, one-shots offer a fair amount of variability. Like on one hand, they could be 5,000 words. On the other hand, they could be 50,000. I think the average one-shot is somewhere between 20 to 30,000 words, which is perfect when you're reading a fic on your lunch break, or you're reading before bed and you don't want to stay up too late. I think as a fanfic reader, as you grow older, you learn to appreciate one-shots a bit more. Like, I remember being younger and I was like, ugh, one-shots, what's the point of those? They're so short. Why would anyone want to waste their time reading those? And then 10 years later, I'm like, oh yeah, I can read like 5 of these in one day compared to that super long multi-chapter fic that's been sitting on my phone for the past 8 months, which I still love, by the way. That's just much more of a commitment, and I have to be like, okay, I cleared out my Sunday, I have no more obligations or responsibilities or work to do. I am gonna hunker down and read at least 3 chapters of this thing. Let's go. One-shots offer you a lot more flexibility in that regard, like, oh yeah, I have time for a 12K single chapter fic before dinner, sure. This next one I've seen get a bad rep online, and maybe I'm out of the loop, but I don't know why. It's case fics. Looks like there's a mystery afoot here. For those not familiar with case fics, they're fanfics that center around a mystery or some sort of mysterious situation that the characters either have to solve or get out of. Think like an episode of Scooby-Doo. I just realized you can see my profile on the whiteboard. That bad reputation may come from, I think, either just really cliche or poorly done mysteries in the story, or it could be that a lot of case fics end up just being incomplete because authors lose steam, or they themselves don't know how they want to end the mystery or solve it. Yeah, there are a lot of incomplete case fics out there thinking about it. Maybe a character is made out to be a villain in a comically evil way and there's not a lot of intrigue building up to it. A fanfic can be a case fic on the down low if the mystery or mysterious situation is not necessarily the focus of it. Like maybe it's happening in the background as the characters are finding love or finding friendship in each other. I'm just a sucker for a good mystery, and I have read a handful of incredibly written case fics where I literally dropped my phone in surprise and had to do a lap around my room like, no! What the f? No! Really? What? Sometimes you, as the reader, will know who the bad guy is off the bat, or you'll know what happened in the mystery or mysterious circumstances, and so you have to spend the entire fic waiting for the characters to catch on and figure it out, which can be very frustrating, but will also keep you on the edge of your seat. So yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for good case fics out there, then drop them in the comments. Pretty please. Shining, shimmering, splendid, that ladder's way too big. Next up on the table, we've got travel AUs. Travel AUs in fanfic are where characters will just travel together. Typically, they'll take place in a modern setting, like for instance, one of my favorite travel AUs ever is a Clance fanfic where it's kind of like a coming-of-age sort of story. Lance and Keith end up traveling separately and they keep running into each other in the different countries they travel to. You could also swing it in the canon universe though, like I'm sure there's travel AUs that exist within Star Wars and they're planet hopping. But ultimately, a very common theme with travel AUs is that characters will have to come to a realization about themselves or life, and they find that with another character, or if they're solo traveling, then they have to have like a light bulb moment themselves. Like they're crying their eyes out at Venice and beneath them there's a gondolier singing, "Oh, it's amore," and there's tourists taking pictures of pigeons on the ground. Besides all that, I enjoy travel AUs because I myself enjoy traveling, and it's almost like inspiration sometimes. Like I'll see these authors write about their favorite characters exploring some destinations that they want to visit someday or they have visited and really loved, and I'm like, damn, I need some more of my own travel AU. I don't see a ton of these either though. Like whenever I find one in the wild, I'm like, Travel AU for this fandom? This one is really not much of a surprise. Not Star Wars Australia. So for those who don't know, Star Wars was the first piece of media that I consciously was aware of being a fan of. A lot of fandoms will kind of go in rotation in my brain, but Star Wars is the one that is always consistent. It's always gonna be there. So just imagining my favorite characters in other pieces of media being thrown into the Star Wars verse, either as Sith Lords, as Jedi, as people in the Rebellion, or the Galactic Senate, it awakens something feral within me. I think the first time I saw art of Hualien in a Star Wars universe, I ascended to another plane of existence. It brings my inner child so much joy. If you ever want to take my breath away, then put my favorite characters in Star Wars outfits or read about them zipping across the galaxy and I will probably cry on the spot. Mentally, I've been writing a Star Wars AU for Trigun as a bedtime story, and it involves Vash being a disgraced Jedi who comes across Wolfwood, and then Knives is his Sith Lord brother who wants to bring him back into the dark side. Very Star Wars. It's so tropey, it's super cliche, but I'm having a great time just playing it on repeat before I pass out every night. We're just going on a sci-fi smorgasbord here. This right here is what I would consider one of my biggest pieces of fanfic kryptonite. It does not matter what the fandom is. If I see a Pacific Rim AU, I am jumping on that. Giant robot mechs, glorious. End of the world shenanigans featuring genetically engineered aquatic monsters, excellent. Having to let your mech co-pilot into your mind to save the world, melding with them in the drift, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, on a level that is so deeply intimate that you don't know where either of you begin or end. The fics write themselves at that point. And you have to pull it together and be in sync too. If someone decides, I'm not really feeling this anymore, or oh, I am suddenly in emotional peril, then the drift is broken. Nothing like a life or death situation to become one with someone and really get to know them, right? It's just the concept of two individuals coming together at practically a molecular level for the greater good and finding out things about the other person along the way. It takes, oh, I can't get you out of my head, to a whole new plane. Maybe I just yearn to be that close with someone someday. I'm not gonna unpack that right now. Yeah, this bun is stale. This may be the most mycelium-coated thing I've ever done, actually. Have half a stale steam bun. Okay, so this one is actually really relevant recently for me because I've been reading a lot more DCU fanfics. It's identity. If you don't know what this is, it's not actual. It could be more described as identity shenanigans, so a lot of superhero fics will have this tagged. It's think of the love square from Miraculous. For instance, Marinette likes Adrienne, who is actually Cat Noir, and Cat Noir / Adrienne likes Ladybug, who is actually Marinette. Cue romantic and frustrating chaos. Hell, even Cinderella could be classified as identity, thinking about it. Just anything to do with keeping an identity or multiple identities secret, or having the identity revealed to another person, which is the best part in my opinion. Seeing the reaction of someone putting the dots together and it's wait, this person is actually you, or this person who's been giving me trouble, or has been my mortal enemy for so long, or I've been having conflicted feelings about. That's been you? This other person that I thought was entirely different? You'll see this often with superhero AUs, or comic fandoms, or you can see it with secret agent stuff, spies, or masquerade balls. I just live for those reveal moments. Which is also why I don't regularly follow Miraculous Ladybug. They've yanked that reveal moment back and forth for too long, and there's no satisfaction from it anymore. Yeah, you guys already know this one. There was a tweet about Omegaverse that was something along the lines of, Omegaverse has great potential for world building and societal commentary, and yes, it does, and that's really cool, and I'm really glad people are able to swing it that way. I just think it's hot. This is guilty pleasures and fanfic, people. While we're here, I'll just... If you know, you know. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one other than I like the flavors you can take. They both can be dragon shifters, or they both can be dragon riders, or one of them can turn into a dragon and the other one is a dragon rider, and then the dragon riding really begins. It could be super sweet and innocent and cute, like How to Train Your Dragon, or it can get into really spicy territory to... Just saying, dragons are cool. That's all. And while we're here, I'll just go ahead and drop this one as well. As for what type of size difference, yes. This one I might be called boring for, but that's okay. Coffee shop AUs. I get it when people say that they're bland or overdone or they're sick of them. I've seen people joke that, oh, coffee shop AUs aren't wholesome because if one of your characters is a barista, then it's workplace harassment. Or, oh, if you were actually a barista, then you'd never romanticize coffee shop AUs. Again, I get it. To all my baristas out there, I could never do what you do. I salute you. Speaking purely from my own heart here, just give me a nice, cozy, warm shop that smells like baked goods and espresso beans, and I'm sold. It's comfy, it puts me at ease, and I like sitting in coffee shops and getting work done or just taking in the vibes. So reading about my favorite characters doing the same thing and getting to know each other surrounded by that very sweet, comfy, cozy environment, or if a character is working as a barista and not a slave to the corporate coffee bean life and they're getting creative with making drinks and adding their own spins on flavors or just getting funky with it, it's really enjoyable. It's sweet and I'm sappy, although you can spin it more comedically too, like if you did want to lean into the corporate coffee bean life and someone's just scrambling trying to get orders done and someone's like, are you okay? It looks like you haven't slept in weeks. And the poor barista's like, no, I haven't had a proper night's sleep in 8 days and I'm working here to pay my tuition, which is stupid expensive, and the owner of this coffee shop is a and I hate it here. And there you have it, your coffee shop AU meet cute or meet ugly. I've had a weak spot for this next fanfic thing for ages, but not in the way you'd expect. It's wedding fics. Not necessarily for two characters getting married, although I do enjoy those as well. More so, I like weddings as a setting or a sort of situation for things to unravel. Like maybe for the ship I'm reading a fic about, they're wedding guests and they meet at the reception and something goes horribly wrong. Maybe they both get mad drunk and oops, they spend the night together and now they have to deal with the morning after. Or maybe one character is a wedding planner and the other person is a divorce attorney, and so they have conflicting ideas about the wedding industry. One's a romantic, one's a skeptic, but in the end they fall for each other and they attend a mutual friend's wedding. And one of them catches the bouquet. I personally really enjoy listening to Reddit stories involving weddings, and so oftentimes I'll kind of alchemize those shenanigans into fanfic ideas or fanfic prompts. Would highly recommend. Weddings give you so much to work with too. I mean, they can be really sweet and sappy, and maybe one character is bawling their eyes out and the other is like, God, this so lame. Love is stupid. Or the wedding is a complete show, and so the two characters who are guests at this wedding kind of look at each other during the reception and are like, hey, do you want to get out of here? Or maybe the characters you're shipping are exes of the couple getting married and they get together out of spite, bitterness, and find something along the way. Maybe a character hooked up with the bride, but he didn't realize she was engaged, and so he finds out she's getting married, and so he runs in to stop the groom from marrying her, and then he and the groom end up together. There's lots of ways you could do this. Hell, if you have your own wedding fic ideas, then throw them in the comments. And if they're inspired by real life events, then even better. I read a fic a long time ago where these two characters had a lot of mutual friends, and every time one of those mutual friends would get married, they would bump into each other at their wedding, and so they would feel attraction, but one of them would be off the market or not able to date for some reason. So this goes on for over a decade, and then finally, after the eighth wedding, they get their act together, and the final wedding, the very last chapter, was their own, which was super cute. This one is also something that I learned to appreciate a lot more as I got older. Before, it wasn't nearly as appealing as I find it now, but they're pregnancy and baby fics. I don't believe I've talked about this before just because it's never come up and I didn't feel the need to bring it up, but I would like kids someday. So in terms of fanfic, I just like the idea of characters settling down and having families with each other. That's pretty much the gist of it, especially if they went through hell and have yearned for families to call their own. It's like, well, now they have the chance to take a breather, really get comfortable and settled, and make their own family. Whenever people create love children of their favorite characters, like, oh, this is what their hypothetical kid would look like, I eat that up. Mentally, it's almost like The Sims for me. Like, oh, what traits did the kid get from this parent or this parent? And babies are a lot of work, so seeing how characters come together and work as a team to tackle that stage is always fun to read about. With the pregnancy part of it, I mean, your body changes a lot when you get pregnant, so seeing how the person who's carrying the baby is faring, and then the other partner trying to dote on them or make things easier, or I'm gonna be a parent soon, Like, seeing all those realizations come to life as the due date gets closer and closer is really funny and cute. When I love two characters, seeing them come together and through their own love bring up this being that they love with all of their hearts, it's so beautiful. In a weird way, it's almost like feeling like a grandma or a proud parent, like, oh, they're doing so well. And I have another trope that's related to this, actually. It's secret baby and or runaway baby mama. Basically, just Mamma Mia. Let's say for some reason two characters just can't be together, or maybe they want to be together, but there's circumstances in place where, oh, one is a much lower social standing, or this person's supposed to be with someone else. Character goes away, but uh-oh, secret baby. At some point, the other parent finds out. The reaction is always priceless. And then they gotta navigate co-parenting along with rekindling their love for one another. Bonus points if the kid ends up pulling the strings to try to get their parents together. This one I used to have more mixed feelings about, but after I read some that really hit for me, I came around to it. It is arranged marriage. I think it's also because this trope works better for some ships versus others. Like, hypothetically, you can make an arranged marriage AU for pretty much any pairing out there, but for certain ones, it'll really make the relationship shine. The first things I think of when I hear arranged marriage AU is K-dramas and not super well executed webtoons. And I do enjoy some of the cliche aspects of it, like mutual pining, maybe a misunderstanding thrown in, and oh my goodness, a confession in the rain! I also really appreciate when authors take their own twist to it too and make it a little more unconventional. The next guilty pleasure thing I love in fanfic is reincarnation. I don't know, just the idea of two souls meeting again and again and again across lifetimes because they're meant to be together or they're meant to meet, and depending on how it goes in that life, they could love each other, they could hate each other, or a bit of both. It's really sweet. I enjoy things that transcend time in fanfic. I've been a bit more choosy when it comes to soulmate AU adjacent things in fanfic over the years, but reincarnation never gets old for me. Stories like Cloud Atlas in fanfic. Ugh. Would I ever want to be kidnapped? No. Do I want to see my favorite characters be kidnapped? Yes. Again, my favorite characters are my emotional piñatas. I want to see them hopeless and scared and sad, and it makes the rescue all the better. Like, one of my favorite fics I'm reading right now is for the DCU. It's Tim Con, or Tim Drake, and Connor Kent. Tim is always getting kidnapped as Robin, but this time he's kidnapped as Tim Drake, and when Superboy rescues him, it's the first time that Superboy and Tim Drake are meeting, not Superboy and Robin, so there's also identity shenanigans happening there. This one is actually a bit applicable to me for no reason at all. Up next, we've got social media and chat fics. I know that the chat fics in particular can get a bad rep just because there's a lot of them out there that you can tell are more on the amateur side, which is a huge draw of fanfic, by the way. I mean, amateur writers learning to write better with something they're passionate about, but I digress. They can just be really funny. Like, some of them I feel are a little too OOC or high schooly for my own tastes, but the ones that I think feel very in character or in line with how they chat or would talk online or would set their username as. Social media AUs as well can get really creative, especially the ones on Twitter, like the thread fics. Or sometimes authors on AO3 will get super creative with like templates or mock-ups of chat rooms or websites. Like, it's not even a fic at that point, it's a whole experience. I love me some goofy fun mischief, and chat fics and social media AUs offer me a lot of goofy fun mischief. You really know an author is having a lot of fun with them when they're able to just concentrate a character's personality in the way they type, which characters are typing in all caps, which ones use too many exclamation marks, which ones spam the chat with emojis, which character types in laps lock, which character has perfect spelling, grammar, and punctuation, which character is sending too many TikTok links in the chat. Does one character change their username too often, and so another character has to go in and change it back, and so now it's a cold war between the two? Does someone get kicked out or banned after they do something stupid? Speaking a bit to the Disney adult part of me here, but I do adore some fairy tale retellings. The most common ones I see are Beauty and the Beast retellings, which, I mean, goes great with the monster stuff. And Identity let's go! Other ones that I see pop up are Rapunzel retellings or Sleeping Beauty retellings, a few Cinderella ones, ones. I don't think I've seen a Snow White one, which I guess would be a little tricky if you don't have like an ensemble cast for like the dwarves and the evil queen and everything. And the woodland creatures. You could do that for Haikyuu. Like, all right, Tanaka, you're gonna be deer number 2, and Nishinoya, you're gonna be chipmunk number 5. I really appreciate when lesser known fairy tales are used as well. Although in terms of Beauty and the Beast retellings, people get pretty damn creative with what sort of monster the beast is. I'm not elaborating how I know that. Oh goodness, I think Omegaverse has had some Little Red Riding Hood-esque things.
No, please don't eat me, Mr. Alpha. I'm just a hopeless Omega. Ah!
For this one, I haven't read anything for it lately, and so I'm kind of craving for it. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, then let me know. It's a shipping dynamic. It's player X innocent or inexperienced. This one is really sweet because you know that there will be some miscommunication or misunderstandings thrown in there at some point, and both characters will probably end up feeling bad. Like, the player's gonna be like, oh, I feel like I'm not worthy of the innocent or inexperienced one because I've slept around a lot, which, you know, doesn't have any bearing on worth, by the way, but they don't know that. And meanwhile, the innocent or inexperienced person's like, oh, well, the player character can have anyone they want. They're so charming and charismatic, and why would they want to be with me? I don't know what I'm doing. They deserve someone they can have fun with and will show them a good time. Cue dramatic tension, angst, self-loathing, hurt, comfort, and then confessions in the rain. It always comes back to confessions in the rain. You also could have groveling scum with this too. Like, let's say on the player character's end, they say something that the innocent, inexperienced person takes wildly out of context or misunderstands, or maybe it's just genuine dumbassery, and so the player character has to make it up to the innocent character, or on the flip side, the innocent character says something that's a little slut-shamey, or like, oh yeah, I mean, you have so many options. It's also really funny too that when they do end up together in the end, a lot of the time the player character's like, oh, let's just take things slow, I want to make sure you're comfortable, and I'm not doing anything to make you feel like you're being rushed, and then the innocent character's just like, get on with it, I'm ready. A really funny tag I've seen on AO3 in the past is insert character here. For MDZS, for example, I've seen Lanjan or Weiwuxian, which, if you know the amount of miscommunication those two have. Oh! This one I feel is best when mixed with other tropes, just because if it's in its purest form, it can get really wooby wumpy quickly, but that being said, I still enjoy it. It's, I'm not good enough or right for this person. I raise you yet again, emotional pinata. I like this best when the character who's saying this is pretty self-assured in other avenues of their life, like they're not a total pile of pudding, wet blankets, sobby mess on the floor 24/7. Like in a superhero case, maybe they're really good at their job and very confident in their skill set and abilities, but when it comes to this person they like, they're like, oh, yeah, This can go well when the character saying this is shipped with an oblivious person who's entirely unaware of the dilemma that's happening in their head, and so they think, oh, everything's fine, everything's going great, and then meanwhile the other person's just like, Or if both of the characters in the ship are like this for different reasons. See the player and innocent or inexperienced ship dynamic again. Why was the first thing that I thought of a Hallmark villain, like those boyfriends that are engaged to the main girl at the start of the story, and then they're like, oh, don't worry, babe, after this big conference, we'll have enough money to live in New York forever. And then she goes to a small town and is like, actually, I fell back in love with my ex that I broke up with in high school, and we're gonna run Christmas Treeville farm together. And so now the Hallmark bad guy boyfriend is like, well, okay. This one is oddly specific, but every time I've come across it, I've lost my brace yourself. It's old character who thinks they're too old for love, ex horny younger one. I could spend a long time trying to analyze this and to dig deeper with it, but ultimately I just think that I want to see an old man get wrecked. The older one just bemoaning how their prime is past and their desirability is not there anymore, and then cut to the younger one who's horny gripping a chair for dear life. Big shocker, this one is popular in Danmei. And for our final guilty pleasure thing in fanfiction, 5+1 fics. These are the fics that you'll see that go like 5 times that character A didn't realize that character B had a crush on them, and 1 time that they did, or 5 times that character A wanted to kiss character B and 1 time they did, or 5 times character A refused to bang in a bush with character B, and one time they did. It's a fic formula that you can pretty much use for anything. Fun fact, it actually originated in the Smallville fandom in the early 2000s, if you can believe it. I think some people don't like these because they became super popular, and so whenever things become popular, people are like, oh, well, they're annoying. And I think a lot of inexperienced writers will gravitate towards writing 5+1 fics because it's a formula and it doesn't take too much thought to make a new formula for yourself. And so maybe they get a bad rep through that because it's like, oh, well, all the 5+1 fics I read are trash and not written well. I just think it's cute and charming. It's fun to see the tables turn at the end. A lot of the time they will be on the shorter side of things as well. Like there'll be 5 chapters for the 5 times something happened, and then a last 6th chapter for and the one time that this other thing happened. Although there is one that I'm currently reading that is pretty long and I'm like eagerly on the tips of my toes waiting for the next update for. But yep, those were my fanfiction guilty pleasures. At least at the moment. I mean, God knows how much this will change by next year. Thank you all so much for watching and following along. I hope you had a good time. Please feel free to drop whatever fanfiction guilty pleasures you have and are comfortable sharing in the comments. You can compare and contrast with one another. Did any of these catch you off guard, or were you expecting a lot of them? And if you'd like a follow-up video to this one of things in fanfiction I can't stand or really dislike, then let me know. Thank you all again so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!